Hello students, welcome to JMCV Learning. So today your French lesson will be on auxiliary verbs and modal verbs in French. Now you all have learned French since you all were kids, no? But still I don't think you all have touched the grammar part yet. So today to give a start to grammar, we will be learning the auxiliary verbs in French. Okay, what are auxiliary verbs and how many auxiliary verbs are there in French language? There are two auxiliary verbs in French language. What are they? The first verb is the être verb, which means to be, and then the avoir verb, which means to have. What is it? Être and avoir. Once again, être and avoir. Right. So now we are going to learn how to conjugate these two verbs according to their subject pronouns. Now, what are subject pronouns? Now, in English, you all have learned subject pronouns. What are they? I, you, he, she, we, you, they. These are the subject pronouns in English. Okay. So now there are the same subject pronouns in French. So what are they? For I in French you say je. For you in French you say tu. He, il, she, elle, we, nous, you, again vous, they, you say il or elle. Right? Je, tu, il, elle, nous, vous, il, elle. Right? Now there are two yous here. No? There is tu and vous, which means you. What is the difference between tu and vous? Tu is used when you are talking to just one person. That means in instances which are singular, which you have to use the singular form of speaking, and then it is used in informal speech. Informal speech, that means when you are speaking to people you really don't have to respect, like people younger than you or maybe your friends. There you should not respect those people. Therefore, you have to use tu when you want to say you for that person. And then vous is used when you are talking to a group of people more than one person. Right? If there is more than one person, you have to use vous when you want to say you. So, in plural form of speech, you use vous. Or when you want to say you to a person you should really respect, like teachers, your parents also, you respect them, elders, or maybe strangers. For strangers you just don't speak informally, you speak to them politely most of the time. Therefore, you have to use vous in formal speech, right? Okay. And then here when you want to say they, there are two ways of saying they in French, il and elle. Here also s is silent, so it is il, elle. So what is the difference between these two? Il we use when you want to say they to a group of males. when it comes to masculine form, only you use il. Then L, when do you use L? When it comes to a group of females, right, a group of girls, then you have to use L. So that is the feminine form, right? Okay, so now you know the subject pronouns in French language, right? Okay, now we have to learn how to conjugate this être verb according to these subject pronouns. Okay. So, when être verb comes with je, it is conjugated as suis. Je suis. What does je suis mean? I am. Okay, I am. So now let's write a sentence with this, right? I am happy. Je suis content. I am happy. I am happy. Right? Okay. So when it comes with tu, when être verb comes with tu, you conjugate it as tu a. What is it? Tu a. Which means you are. Let's write a sentence with it. You are sad. You are sad. Tu es triste. Tu es triste. You are sad. Okay? And then il or l. With il or l, être verb is conjugated as a. That means he or she is. No, we have to write two sentences there, right? Okay. So we can write he is handsome. Il est beau. And she is beautiful. Elle est belle. Okay. So here beau means handsome. Belle means beautiful. Okay. Right. And no, we. How is the être verb conjugated with no? Some. Okay. We are students. We are students. So we can say nous sommes les étudiants. Nous sommes les étudiants. We are the students. Okay. So with wo, okay, eighth verb is conjugated as eth. So you pronounce it as woozeth, woozeth. Okay. So see, with wo, the eighth verb is conjugated as eth. So you pronounce it as woozeth. What is it? Woozeth, which means you are. Right? So let's make a sentence with it. You are kind. Was it kind? How do you say? Janti. So if you are talking to a lot of people, when you want to say you are kind for a group of people, you have to add s. If you are talking to only one person in formal form, then you can use Janti without s. Okay, so if you are talking to one person, when it comes to singular speech, yes, you do not have to use s for this adjective, right? If you are talking to more than one person, right, or to two people or more than two people, then you have to use s for the adjective, right? And then il, el, they. How do you conjugate eighth verb with they? Il, el, song. What is it? Song, right? Which means they are, okay, il, el, song. Let's make a sentence. They are boys. For the masculine pronoun, they are boys. Il sont garçons, right? For the feminine pronoun, they are girls. Elles sont filles. They are boys. They are girls, right? So il is used for masculine form, elle is used for feminine form. So let's read this once again. Je suis content. Tu es triste. Elle il est beau. Elle est belle. Nous sommes les étudiants. Vous êtes gentils. Ils sont garçons. Elles sont filles. Okay? Right? So here you definitely have to put this ma on top of e. Here, so it is the same. So please copy down this note into your writing books. Okay? Pause the video and copy this note in your writing book. As you have copied down the eighth verb conjugation with some sentences we created using eighth verb, now we are going to start conjugating the avoir verb, which means to have. What is the verb? Avoir, right? So now, sure means I, right? So now with I, how do you conjugate it? Now since this starts with a vowel, you have to put J apostrophe instead of je. So it is J. J means I have. Okay. Tu as. You have. Okay. Il or elle are. He or she has. Okay. Nous avons. We have. Vous avez. You have. So what is the difference between vous and tu? What is the difference between these two? Yes, tu is used for informal speech and vous is used for formal speech, and then tu is used for singular speech and vous is used for plural speech, right? And then they have ils ont, elles ont. So this is the conjugation of our verb with the particular subject pronoun. So let's read it once again. J'ai, tu as, il a, elle a, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont, elles ont. Right? J'ai, tu as, il a, elle a, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont, elles ont. Right? Okay, now let's make some sentences using the our verb. I have a book. J'ai, which means I have a book. What does un livre? Un livre. What does un livre mean? A book. Right? You have a pencil. You have a pencil. Tu as un crayon. Tu as un crayon. You have a pencil. He or she has a pen. Il or elle a un stylo. We have, what can we say? We have flowers. We have flowers. Nous avons des fleurs. Nous avons des fleurs. You have a dog. Vous avez un chien. You have a dog. Right? Vous avez un chien. They have cats. They have cats. Ils or elles ont des chats. Okay. So j'ai, which means I have. J'ai un livre. Okay. Tu as, which means you have. Tu as un crayon. Right. Il a, elle a. He or she has. Il or elle a un stylo. Nous avons, which means we have. Nous avons des fleurs. We have flowers. Vous avez, which means you have. Vous avez un chien. You have a dog. Ils or elles ont, they have. So ils or elles ont des chats. They have cats. Right? So did you all understand the conjugation of the our verb and the être verb? Okay, so please pause the video and copy this note down into your writing books. Okay, and you have to by heart, the être verb as well as the avoir verb, because otherwise you will not be able to at least create a very basic sentence in French, right? So these are the most basic part of grammar in French language, right? Okay, so now for today the auxiliary verbs lesson is completed, right? And then we have to start the modal verbs part, right? So now I have uploaded some questions, some MCQ questions to your side, to the site. So please download them and answer them, right? Try to answer them and let's see how many marks you will get out of 20. Okay, so please copy down this note. So now everyone has already studied about the auxiliary verbs in French, right? So how many auxiliary verbs are there in French? 2 auxiliary verbs, and what are they? Être and avoir verb, right? So we have already completed studying the auxiliary verbs in French, right? Now we are on to the modal verbs in French, okay? What are modal verbs? There are 5 types of modal verbs. Now as I have written here on the board, there are 5 types of modal verbs in French, right? First type is to when you need to express ability, when you want to say I can do this, right? I could do this. Modal verbs are used. So the modal verb you use is can or could. To ask for permission, you use modal verb can, could or may, right? So to give advice, you use the modal verb should. And then to express obligations, you must do this. So you use the modal verb must or have to, right? And then to express possibility, might, may, could or can, right? So the modal verbs, so the main main 3 modal verbs out of this is to be able to or can, and then must or want, right? So in French literary there are 3 modal verbs, okay? So before we go on to the conjugation of those 3 modal verbs, please copy this down into your writing books, okay? Copy this down into your writing books, pause the video, and then let's go to the modal verb conjugations in French. Okay, now all of you know why we use modal verbs and in which instances we use modal verbs. So there are 5 types of modal verbs as I told you, right? So I told you that there are mainly 3 modal verbs in French language, right? Now see what I have written in the whiteboard, okay? So now here I have written 3 verbs, pouvoir, vouloir and devoir. What are they? Pouvoir, vouloir, devoir. Once again, pouvoir, vouloir and devoir, right? What do you mean by pouvoir? To be able to or can. What do you mean by vouloir? To want. And what do you mean by devoir? Must, right? Now let's start with conjugating the pouvoir verb, okay? Right. Je means I. So when you want to conjugate je with pouvoir, je peux, je peux, which means I can. Okay. I can. Right? And then tu, per, which means yes, you can. Okay. Right. Then il or el. What do you mean by il or el? Il means he, el means she, right? He or she can, il, el. Per, but you add a T at the end. Here you add an X, here you add a T at the end. Il or el, per. He or she can. Okay. And then nu, pouvons. Nous pouvons. We can. Right? Vous pouvez. Vous pouvez, which means you can. And il or elle peuvent. Ils or elles peuvent. They can. Right? So once again we will read this. Pouvoir, je peux, tu peux, il or elle peut, nous pouvons, vous pouvez, il or elles peuvent. Peuvent. Okay. So that is how you conjugate the pouvoir verb with the particular subject pronouns. Okay. Now let's move on to the vouloir verb, which means to want, right? So I want. Je veux. Okay. I want. You want. Tu veux. Il or elle veut, he or she wants. Nous voulons. We want. Vous voulez. Il or elle veulent. Il or elle veulent. Once again. Je veux, tu veux, il veut, elle veut, nous voulons, vous voulez, ils veulent, elles veulent. Okay, did you understand this part? So now we have learned how to conjugate the pouvoir verb and the vouloir verb with the particular subject pronouns. Now we are going to learn how to conjugate the verb devoir, must, right? Je dois. Tu dois. I must. You must, right? Il, doit. He or she must, right? Nous devons, nous devons, we must. Vous devez, you must. Ils, ont, ils, doivent, ils, doivent, they must. Okay, right? So let's read it once again. Je dois, tu dois, il doit, elle doit, nous devons, vous devez, elle doit. Right? Once again. Je dois, tu dois, elle doit, nous devons, vous devez, elle doit. Right? So these are the 3 modal verbs of French language. Right? Okay. So once again we'll read these 3 conjugations. Pouvoir, je peux, tu peux, elle peut, nous pouvons, vous pouvez, elles peuvent. Je veux, tu veux, il veut, elle veut, nous voulons, vous voulez, elles veulent. Je dois, tu dois, il doit, elle doit, nous devons, vous devez, ils doivent, elles doivent. Right? Okay. So now you all have learnt how to conjugate the 3 modal verbs in French. Okay. So now please pause the video and write down the note. Write down all these conjugations, and then just like the auxiliary verbs we learnt earlier, the modal verbs also play a main role, a very main role in writing French language, writing sentences in French language. Therefore, you have to by heart these 3 modal verbs, the conjugation of these 3 modal verbs as well, right? Okay, so copy this down quickly, and next we will be learning how to construct sentences using the modal verbs or the auxiliary verbs. Okay. Now, let's make some sentences using the modal verbs. Okay. First sentence, I want to eat. How do you say I in French? How do you say I in French? Je want or need. How do you say that? Veux. To eat, you say manger. Right? Okay. From the next question, you have to answer by yourself. Okay? Here you have to conjugate the pouvoir verb according to tu. Okay, please answer these two questions. You have to conjugate pouvoir according to Theo here, devoir according to il. Okay, so now have you all finished answering these two questions? Very simple, isn't it? Okay, so now you have to conjugate the pouvoir verb tu blank nage according to tu, right? You can swim. What do you mean by nage? Swim, right? So how do you conjugate pouvoir verb with tu? How did you write? Per. Tu peux nager. You can swim, right? And then devoir. Devoir. Devoir means must, right? So he must go to the cinema. So you have to conjugate devoir with il, which means he. So il blank aller au cinéma. Il doit aller au cinéma. Il doit aller au cinéma. Right? Okay. So now we have come to the end of our lesson. Modal verbs as well as auxiliary verbs. I hope you all understood what I taught you up to now. Right? So you have to by heart the auxiliary verb conjugations as well as the modal verb conjugations in order to create a very basic sentence even, right. So now after we by heart all these conjugations, right, we can even make more complex sentences using auxiliary verbs plus modal verbs. So our next lesson will be more complex, more advanced than these two types of verbs. Okay. So therefore I want you all to by heart all these verb conjugations. Okay. So then you all have to copy this down, copy whatever the notes I have given, and then I have attached a MCQ question paper. You all must answer those questions and see how many marks you will get out of 20. Okay. So then study well and have a very nice day. Thank you.